Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Transatlantic Call-In Show. This is the place where you get to call in and ask two live, real trans people, I'm pretty sure, any and every question you have about trans rights or trans issues, anything at all. We would love to hear from you. I'm going to be your main host tonight, steering the ship. But with me is a superstar, doer of all the things, and a new favorite on the show, Josie.
Hi, everybody. I thank you for having me again. I was so in love with all of you, and you request me back, and here I am. And now I have like new best friends because of all of you, and I'm super excited to hang out with you more.
Awesome. Yeah, we're so excited to have you. Little known secret, I don't always tune in on the episodes that I'm not here. I'll usually see how it's going, make sure the show went off without a hitch, but then I'll like go do whatever I'm doing. But when I was watching y'all's episode, I heard you talking and I was like, man, I'm not going to turn this off. I need to watch the rest of this episode. So super excited to get to host with you this time. But yeah, I think I'll remind the audience this is a call-in show, so we would love to take your calls. You got the number in the corner of the screen. We do prioritize maybe slightly more combative anti-trans calls. Well, we'd love to do advice segments. I think we've probably given just about every piece of advice multiple times over now. And so we like to try to, debunk a little misinformation here and there. So if you think that trans people don't exist or that maybe we shouldn't have healthcare or something crazy like that, we'd love to hear from you. Please give us a call and we'll dig into it. But for now, I think we're going to check out our polls from the last week. So let's dive into that. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so last week's poll was Quidditch changed its name to Quad Ball recently. Is this good? Your options were yes, distance from JKR, or don't care, no, pretend JKR doesn't exist, or what is Quidditch? And to be honest, I love the answer to this poll. Honestly, with a lot of this stuff, especially with like controversial anti-trans figures, I kind of love hearing that our audience is like, who is that? I don't know if they really matter.
Yeah.
It reaffirms to me that maybe they're not the evil, magnificent force that sometimes I think we make them out to be, in online spaces. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Josie?
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. It's good to see like the sheltered life some of the viewers have, where it's like, what is Quidditch? Who is J.K. Rowling?
Oh,
Yeah, it's
apparently...
not the right one. We talked about this last time, but I'm okay. I go with it.
Oh, okay. All right, we filled up the wrong poll. I totally blame Jimmy and not me.
Yeah,
it's a team effort. I didn't even know what poll was live this week, so my bad. All right, sorry, we're having some tech issues in the background, but that's totally okay. We're going to get that solved so we can check out the upcoming poll, and then we're going to dive into questions. We've only got one caller on the line, so if you're out there and you're like brewing and steaming, you want to talk to us, please do call. We've got lines open at this point in time. Oh, yes, last week's question was about Keffals. Trans activist Keffals was swatted and repeatedly designated and misgendered by officers. She's raising legal funds to fight back should the officers be held responsible for discrimination and harassment. And, I should never be surprised because our audience is obviously overwhelmingly in support of us and like a lot of the positions we hold. So heck yes, good to see the majority of the audience is totally down for pushing back against this. I think also recently, it was either today or yesterday, the letter that started this all, or the email, was released. And I think they misspelled her name and used her dead name within the original troll email, which makes it even more absurd that this situation needed to happen in the first place. Like, how quick we are to jump to criminalizing trans people is not shocking, but also appalling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. And Keffals is actually a friend of mine, and when this happened, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, 1 second. Jimmy, sorry, we can still hear you while you're doing that. Sorry. Go on, Josie.
Okay, sorry. But it's really one of the things that was it's just horrific that this is now the thing that is the hate crime of choice right now by trans detractors. You have right
Mm.
now the Boston Child Hospital is now being bombarded, and also the doctors are now having the lockdown themselves, doing security protocols, and then you also just on like the FBI office in Cincinnati being shot, being attacked, and by a gunman.
Mm.
Like, this stochastic terrorism that is happening is starting to take real life consequences on people, and I hope that we start actually cracking down on this, because it's a scary world. I mean, we're public trans people ourselves, so
Yeah.
it could be us, right? And so we need to support our fellow trans creators and hope that these things don't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of creators underestimate how scary that is. Like Matt and I go to conferences together all the time, like atheist groups that hold these conferences.
Yeah.
And there's always a part of me that's a little nervous when you're going to a big group like this. Like, who knows who's going to show up? If we always announce that we're going there, there's always a risk that something can happen. It's definitely scary to see this stuff happening. But I'm glad our audience is totally on Keffel's side with this. And likewise, I hope that she uses that money she raised for, really fighting back hard against this. I think the downstream effects of potentially succeeding with some sort of legal pursuits could have a lot of really good downstream effects for other queer and trans people. So good on that. Fingers crossed all that goes well. But yeah, let's check out what next week's poll is so y'all can get voting and get involved and let us know what you think. So next week, we're doing, should people in positions of power be forced to publicly, quote, declare trans-identified offspring? Your options are no, what the fuck, I'll watch the show to learn more, or yes, pink triangles for all LGBT people and their families. So I must have missed whatever news thing this was tied to. Josie, are you plugged in on this? Is this related to something specific that you know of?
It seems like it's another thing that is probably related to some anti-trans bill that's being passed in a state somewhere. I know there have been laws that are being passed where, like, the schools are required to call students by their biological, like, birth name, whatever that
Right.
means.
Yeah.
And also, like, they're trying to, like, protect also teachers who are bigoted, right? Where their teachers are like, I refuse to call you that, and they're trying to give
Mm.
protections to teachers to do that type of stuff. So I think, to me, if the school is required to call somebody a different name or use genders that were assigned or sexes that were assigned at birth as their genders, then yeah, they're basically declaring trans people identify their offspring, like, declare it, because that's what's essentially going to be happening. So yeah, it's a
Right.
scary world. It's a scary
I
world.
see. Our producer, Jimmy, just linked me an article that Kathleen Stock has suggested. No surprise, of course, she's leading this charge, that parents should have to declare that they have trans kids. Apparently, I think this is high profile figures. I think this is maybe to suggest that, maybe parents of trans kids who have political influence might be biased, according to her view, unfairly in favor of trans rights. So maybe the suggestion is, I think this is kind of where Katy wrote this poll, if you didn't know. Uh, so I'm sure she'll probably be way more plugged in to talk about this next week. But yeah, thank you so much, Jimmy, for linking me that article. Yeah, obviously that's absurd. And I think Katy's analogy here that this is essentially the, pink triangles of the modern age. If you don't know, in Germany during the start of the Second World War, a way to target and identify gay and lesbian trans people was to have them wear pink triangles, identifying them
Yeah.
that way. So that way they could be targeted. So yeah, I think I can definitely see the analogy there. Sorry for not being more plugged into that from the start.
Well, and that in combination with like Texas child abuse law, or not law, but like incentive to like report parents of trans kids. Like if you're forced to then declare you have a trans kid, then everybody on that in that town can like just sue you, right? Or not sue
Right.
you, but report you to CPS. And and I hate it because it grinds the gears of the actual child protective services when you're just like making false claims on normal, healthy trans people when there's actual child abuse going on. But now they're just like flooding and like making the whole agencies less effective because they hate trans people. It's just layers
Right.
upon layers of ignorance and stupidity.
Yeah, that really reminds me of back when the Q stuff was really bad. There were false reports getting sent to CPS agencies across the country about the Democrats are drinking the blood of children or some crazy shit.
Yeah,
So much so that it
adrenochrome.
actually inhibited their normal course of action on things. So it's not it's not a surprise to see this sort of thing. It's definitely been done before. But yeah, that's really also, I see Katy in the chat has said the poll was hers because she thought she was supposed to be on today, but she'll be on next week and she'll get to talk about the results, which I think is probably more something she would want to talk about anyway. But with that, if you're good, Josie, we've got a couple people on the
All
line.
right,
Let's dive into callers.
let's
All
do
right.
it.
So I see we've got maybe one spicy caller, but let's dip our toe in a little more easily. We're going to start with Jessica. She, they in Tennessee. Jessica, you are live on Transatlantic. What's going on?
Hi, Arden. First, I'd like to thank you and Katy for all the work you've done on this show and on behalf of the trans community. You've been a big help to me during my transition.
Well, thank you very much. That's very sweet of you to say.
And the reason I called in was that recently I've been having some issues with imposter syndrome, and it just seems to be getting worse. And I'm just wondering, what can I do about this? And does it ever get any better?
Yeah, Josie, you want to take that one?
Well, so what do you mean by imposter syndrome? Because like when I hear imposter syndrome, sometimes I think like, oh, I'm not good enough to be in the job that I'm in. Are you feeling that same type of level of like your gender identity and expression? I just want to make sure that I am understanding completely what you mean.
Yeah, for example, I'll hear these voices in my head telling me that I'm not really a woman. I'm just playing dress up, and you're never going to be a real woman. So you need to stop what you're doing now and just live your life.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I will tell you right now, I was raised in Texas, and I didn't come out until I was 34 years old. I was also in the Navy for 6 years pre-transition as well, and I had to deal with what I call my own personal internal transphobia, right? Where my entire life I was told that this is the way a woman's supposed to be. This is this is what a man is supposed to be. And I was told these things very rigidly. And those things that go into your head kind of become trauma, right? It's like it becomes traumatic so much that it's like when you're actually living your truth, it's like, am I doing this? Is this okay? Because there's still a little bit inside of like, oh my gosh, is this right? And that is going to be there for a little bit because we're all human and we have to be able to say, no, I am who I am. Damn it, I look good. This is who I am. This is what makes me happy. This is everything that I am. And just know that you are the beautiful person that you are, and you are exactly the way you were supposed to be. And don't let the society that has put so much pressure on us to be a different way get in your mind to tell you that you're wrong, because that's what they want. So it's completely normal and that to have those feelings, because I had them for a long time. Sometimes I even do now. Sometimes I'll be walking, I'm like, oh my gosh, is somebody gonna, and I still have that irrational fear, right? And so just let you know that it's normal and you are doing exactly what you're supposed to do, and it is just a symptom of the oppression that we had to suffer for so many years before we could be who we are.
Yeah, so well said. I think I've said this many times before, but it bears repeating over and over again. I think one of the only universal trans experiences might be thinking you're not trans enough, or thinking, all those people are trans, but for me, it's I'm just some deluded pervert or something. We all hear those. We all grew up in the same society. We all heard those narratives being said about trans people. So that we all got that imprinted on our brain. Well, at least if you're living in like America or the UK, I imagine those things are probably very deeply imprinted on your brain, because I know I heard that kind of stuff all the time growing up. And well, sure, getting older, learning more about these things, I'm like, oh, trans people are just a way that humans can be, and, giving us the space to transition and be ourselves is really what is best for us. Well, that's true. It doesn't, my brain still has those narratives too, every now and then I'll be walking around thinking, oh, I feel so awful about myself. I'm just playing dress up. I'm just some ugly, creature who's, lurking around society or something, like they would tell you are. And then I'll look at a mirror and be like, oh, actually, no, I'm not. I'm actually just a person who's just trying to live my life and feel comfortable in my own skin. But yeah, I think, Jessica, that is the most universal trans experience you can have, is to feel like you're not trans enough. It's one of those things that there's no blood test that's going to come up and say, ding, ding, yes, you're trans. You really have to take stock of like who you are, how you feel, and what you think is going to be best for you. And while that doesn't feel as maybe concrete as like a genetic or blood test might be for certain other illnesses, I mean, not that transness is an illness, but, it really does have to be enough for you that, and it's hard to accept that, but that just this is what is best for you, and that, and that's why you're pursuing this. It doesn't have to be enough for someone else. If they want to think those things about you, it sucks. It really does, but that doesn't mean that it's true. But yeah, that was a lot. I don't know if Josie, you have any other thoughts, or if you have anything to how that helped Jessica.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say too, Jessica, what helped me a lot is to find a good support group of trans people that I used to meet on Zoom, or even a local community center if possible, where you're in that space and that you are safe in that space. And it kind of gets you in the habit of just being who you are in front of people who just know you for who you are. And I think that helps as well, as far as especially coping and when you're feeling down. It's like, I think that would help as well. And, but I would love to hear your reactions to the things that we said.
Well, I think that I think that I appreciate everything that both of you have said, and I guess what I need to do then is, when I start feeling that way, just remind myself that whatever anybody else says about me, I am a trans woman, and as long as I'm comfortable in my own skin, like y'all said, then that's all that really matters.
Yeah. And actually, I love the way you phrased that too, Jessica. It kind of makes me think of like cognitive behavioral therapy. Something they'll teach you a lot is when you have those like intrusive, irrational thoughts, a really good way to address that is every time it comes up, to really take the time and sit with that feeling and work it back, and like, why am I thinking this? Where does this come from? And it doesn't match with reality. And I think you'll find a lot of those self-hating shame narratives that we get drilled in us are not rooted in reality. They're rooted in, cultural prejudice. And it sucks that we have to carry that baggage with us. And it's not fair that we have to do this emotional labor of like every time that feeling comes up, working through it. But I do think the more you do that, you're going to find the less often you have to do it in general. Yeah, so I hope that's helpful. And I would love if you, maybe over the next couple couple weeks, if you try to implement that, if you want to like call back and let us know how you're feeling, maybe if it's having an impact, or maybe if you think of something that's like different that you found was really helpful, it would be great to share that information with our audience. I would love to hear how that goes.
Okay.
Yeah, Jessica.
Well, I really do appreciate your advice and your help.
Yeah, thank you so much for calling, Jessica, and I wish you the absolute best. I know it's rough out there, but there is definitely people out there who are going to love you for you and who aren't going to, tell you all those things. So I wish you the best of luck, and we'll hear from you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Arden and Josie. I appreciate it. Bye.
No problem. Bye.
Bye. All right. Awesome first call. That was such a
good start.
I mean, it's a little glum topic, but I think it was a positive note to kick off on. And as I say that, I see the next caller maybe is going to be a little bit of a hot take, but that's all right. That's what we're here for. I will remind you, we have got 3 open lines right now. So if anyone in the audience is sitting there brewing on a question and you're nervous to call in, I promise we don't bite. Got the number in the corner. If you call in, you're going to talk to our screener briefly, and then you'll be put in our queue to come on air. So we'd love to hear from you. Until then, we're going to take Jos, pronouns are he, him, from the Netherlands. Jos, you are live on Transatlantic. What is going on?
Right. Let's ruin the positivity.
Okay.
Just kidding. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So I see you're...
but hey.
It's all right. We're emotions might happen, but I want to hear what you have to say. We'll work through this together. We're going to try to we're going to try to navigate this as a team. So
absolutely.
What's going on?
Right. So my hot take is that non-binary people don't exist because they're simply confused about their gender.
They're too what? I missed that last part.
Oh, by the way, is it okay if I swear, or would you prefer if I don't?
I don't care if you swear. You said they're confused about their gender, correct?
You said confused?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Well, that's what I think. I'm not sure. But I really want to discuss this with someone I disagree with instead of being in an echo chamber.
Got it.
The reason why I think that is because if I look at, especially when it comes to young people, children, and teenagers, I think what's happening right now is that, you have someone who is a biological boy or a biological girl, and then they look, at least I suspect that they look at traditional gender roles and gender stereotypes, and then they go, they don't apply to me. So therefore, I am not, let's say it's a biological boy, therefore I'm not a boy, I'm something else. Either I'm a girl, and then they'll go, maybe I'm a girl. Oh, but the stereotypes about women don't apply to me either. Oh, that must be I'm non-binary. I'm non-binary. And I think that just stems from very rigid thinking about gender. Because you can be I consider myself to be a pretty... Oh, can you still hear me?
Yes, yep. We're listening.
Okay, I just heard my headphones disconnect. Right, so I think that it stems from very rigid thinking about gender, not realizing that, you can be a man and be very feminine. You can be a woman and be very masculine. If I look at myself, I consider myself to be a pretty feminine man. If I look at male gender stereotypes, they don't apply to me either. That doesn't mean I'm non-binary or a girl. So I think that if you're, I think that what happens is that you look at what does it mean to be a man, and if your answer is, all of these stereotypes, and you say, what does it mean to be a woman, and it's a bunch of other stereotypes, and you look at those two things and you go, those don't apply to me, therefore I'm something else. I think that just stems from a very rigid thinking, which would make sense if you look at, if you look at gender dysphoria. If you read about it in DSM, you'll see that there's comorbidity with autism spectrum disorder, meaning that if you have the gender dysphoria, there's a higher chance of you having autism than if you don't.
Yeah. I'm gonna. I don't want to sidetrack onto this whole the correlations with autism thing. I don't think it's relevant for this topic. So I hear you saying, Yas, a lot of, oh, well, I think this happens because of this, and I think this happens because of this, and I'm kind of curious, like, how many non-binary people have you actually had this discussion with?
I've met 2.
You've met 2 non-binary.
And so I don't have much experience with, non-binary people, which is why I'm not saying this is the case. I am saying that in my hot take here, because I thought, hey, maybe I'm getting more attention if I say it bluntly like this. The reason why I'm not stating this as a fact. I'm not saying like, oh, this is the case and you guys are wrong. I actually really want to. I want to see to what extent, if any, I'm right.
Is your claim strictly non-binary people don't exist? Is that the claim that you're making?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but you meant 2 non-binary
what
people.
I mean by that is, of course, they exist, but I think what they really mean is, well, they're actually a man or a woman, but they don't align into stereotypes. That's what I think.
So, okay. I guess I'm also, I do want to let Josie talk here. Just to clear up a few more confusions. You think...
Okay.
You think binary trans people exist, though? You think that somebody can have an internal sense of gender that is distinguished from maybe their sexes as assigned at birth?
Yeah, I think that's simply gender dysphoria.
Okay, so I think
that's another hot take. I don't think trans people who don't have gender dysphoria really are trans people, but that's an all different thing, I think.
It's a different topic for the most part. I mean, there's some overlap here, but I think so. Like, part of the issue that I'm having is that, like, I don't really know how you can accept binary trans people and not also accept non-binary trans people, because, like, if you can understand that someone's sense of gender is such that they can clearly identify that their sex as assigned at birth is not compatible with their sense of self, then I don't know how you can't accept that a non-binary person's identity is not compatible with their sex assigned at birth or their sense of self. Or, like, for example, I've known plenty of non-binary people who initially thought they were binary trans people, started to transition and went, oh shit, this is absolutely not right. I'm gonna just be in my own space as myself, because neither of these groups are ones that I seem to fit neatly into. But Josie, I feel like you're chomping at the bit, so I want you to get in here.
Yeah, I am a little. So I like to take it a step back, right? Because, you have your, like, trans identity, and then you have, like, the types of trans identities that people hold, right? So the first one is, like, the binary between trans and cis, right? Cisgender meaning that you are assigned a sex at birth and your gender aligns with that sex that you were assigned at birth. So do you believe that, so if someone says they're not cis, do you believe that, or do you say, oh, prove it to me? I'm just curious. I'm not trying to be antagonistic. So if somebody says I'm trans, let's say it that way. If somebody says they're trans without saying they're a woman or a man or non-binary or anything, they just say, hey, I'm a trans person. Would you believe them? Somebody says I'm trans. Let's say it that way.
Oh,
okay. I heard something right now. Do you hear me?
Yes, I see. Yes, we had a disconnection issue.
Oh, did you? So you want me to? I'll just say it really quickly then. When it comes to trans and cisgendered people, if somebody said before they even told you they were a woman, a man, or non-binary, they just said, "Hey, I'm a trans person," would you take that and believe them?
I mean, I definitely try to be as respectful as I can. So if someone says, look, I'm a trans woman, please, my pronouns are she, her.
What if they just say they're a trans person? What if they just say they're a trans person and they didn't say woman, man, or non-binary? They just said, hey, I'm a trans person.
But I would ask, would you say, mean?
So you would ask, so if they were to answer, I'm not cis, that's why I'm trans. Would you say? Sure. So you would so that's what a trans non-binary person, it is just somebody who's not cis. They're just trans, and just non-binary, right? So the sense of self of like when you identify as cisgender, like you said, you're a feminine presenting man, like you said,
Right.
you're still a man, and your internal sense of gender is still cis because you were assigned male at birth, and you still identify as a man even though you're feminine,
Yeah.
which is completely valid and okay. And I think that the expression, and this is where the best division here is. So you have expression and then you have gender identity. Those are two different things, right? Like a drag queen, for example, is most of the time a cis man, right? And they just perform in drag and do a performance, but they still go and be a cis man, right? Like so their expression could be highly feminine, but their gender identity could still be masculine. So when we talk about trans identities, we really are talking specifically about gender identities beyond how you present. So for example, I know many trans women who are actually butch lesbians, right? So they don't do all of the characteristics that I do, for example, as a feminine trans woman. So really there's different spectrums, but my expression as a feminine person isn't really connected to my gender identity as a woman, right? Because if I identified as a man, I could be a feminine man and still say I'm a man, but I don't feel that because internally I'm actually a woman. Does that make sense? That we need to be able to make sure we create the distinction between gender expression and gender identity.
Right, but if you're really feminine, then you could also be a cis man and be really feminine and also express as feminine.
Yes, exactly, and still be a man if you internally identify as a man, right? It's up to the person to identify their gender, right?
I guess
like
it boils
we
down
can't
to,
go into people's.
I don't really understand. I'm sorry, I'm talking through you here.
It's okay. No, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess it boils down to I don't really understand what it really means to be non-binary, because to me it really seems like you're looking at what a man is, what a woman is, and then you go, nope, both of them aren't me. Which it seems like you're looking at gender stereotypes.
No. I actually tried to divide it from that, right? When I said gender expression, that's the social constructs that you're talking about, right? Like looks like a man, dresses masculine, whatever, right? Like that's the gender expression. That's the thing that you're talking about, right? When a non-binary person says they're non-binary, they're not looking at expression when they're making that decision. It is completely solely the gender identity. Right. It's not your expression, right? Gender identity is separate from your expression, right? Because that's what I was saying. Like I'm a feminine trans woman, right? But I am always like, if I was just like coming out of the shower with nothing on at all, and I'm still a woman, right? It's like being fully naked isn't going to take my womanhood away because I'm not expressing myself that way, right? So that's what I mean, right? Because when a trans person sees their expression, it's only an outward like presentation of who they are, but internally it's inside who their gender identity is. Arden, go ahead.
I want to hop in here, Yas, because I think part of something that I'm seeing maybe is it sounds like your concept, Yas, of a gender identity might be more like a hard like light that turns on. Like if you got a row of 3 lights and someone's a woman, like this light is turned on. When I think really what we're dealing with identity is interpreting your sense of self within the parameters of a society that you're in. And while for some people that's going to cleanly lie them in the woman category or the man category, for some people it's not going to be as straightforward. It's not like when we're talking about gender identity as a durable psychological like phenomenon, it's not like there are 3 orientations for that: man, woman, and other. There are ranges of like places where your identity can land within that construct. And for some people, the way they might interpret that is, oh, I feel like a man. Society says this is what a man is, so that all makes sense for me. We're good to go. For some people, it might be like, I definitely don't feel like what people are telling me I am, and that doesn't feel right either. Maybe there might, like, I know Katie and I have both talked about this multiple times, but when it comes to like the philosophical distinction of like what you legitimately are, that doesn't really seem useful to me to hash out with regards to individuals. It may
What do you
be.
mean by that?
Yeah, I'll explain. So my sense of identity, right? I would consider myself a woman. I don't think I fulfill a lot of the stereotypes of a woman, and I could completely see how someone who had all of my experience, except for maybe a few tweaks and changes, could look at their sense of identity and say, I'm a non-binary person. I can completely understand how someone could come to that conclusion. But for me, I interpret my identity as a woman. That doesn't mean that I live up to every expectation or every stereotype. It just means that my sense of identity, to my estimation, fits within a certain parameter of social groups.
Could you repeat that last part?
Yeah, my identity, as I perceive it, seems to fit relatively well within this certain group of this social group of people. And I think what non-binary people are experiencing is maybe in certain ways they say, oh, I can maybe integrate with women here a little bit, and I can maybe integrate with men here a little bit, but it seems like overall the summation of my identity puts me somewhere outside of those two categories.
Yeah, but that's what aren't we agreeing now?
No.
Doesn't that mean that
we're close?
Okay.
Right.
it seems like what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like what you're saying is that if you look at what a stereotypical woman is, you look at all those boxes and you check a lot of those boxes. You look at what a man is, you look at all those boxes, you barely check any of those. You go, oh, okay, well, I'm a woman then. And what a non-binary person would do is look at all those boxes and go, no, it's neither of these sets of boxes, therefore I'm something else. Whereas if I look at my own gender identity...
I was going to say, I think the difference is when you're saying looking at those boxes, right? It sounds like you have the perception that if someone checks those boxes, it's because the woman light that we talked about earlier, the hypothetical woman light, was on in their brain. And that's the reason they check those boxes. I am saying that somebody who has my exact experience could interpret their identity potentially as non-binary. I'm making the estimation at the personal level that I fit more cleanly within the woman category, and that's an identity I'm comfortable taking. I'm not making a claim about the like state of my brain being for sure structured in the woman-like category. It may be that there's overlap between all of these groups, and I think a person not checking off those boxes, it's not about stereotypes. They're talking about the combination. It's a I forget the metaphor, we've used it before. It's sort of like a mathematical thing in my mind of like somebody's taking into account like stereotypes on some level, but also mostly it's like their own internal sense of self, and the equation, the result of that equation is kind of what might lead them to make that determination of what category they fit in.
Yeah, and I just want to say this.
You look at what a woman is and what a man is, and then you go, I'm neither.
So basically, if you're looking at it as the gender identity, then sometimes they say they feel like both, sometimes they feel like in the middle, sometimes they feel completely off of that spectrum. The thing that I want to say is like, you're talking to two binary trans women right now, and we're not non-binary. So our own experiences as trans people and the people that we know that are non-binary, we can kind of say, hey, non-binary people are my friends. I know them. They're amazing. Their existence is real, and I want to bust some myths. There's a lot of non-binary people I know that have gender dysphoria and have done gender affirming surgeries on their non-binary bodies.
Absolutely.
And so, and so, sometimes a non-binary person has, let's just say maybe breasts that are too large and they want to reduce it, but they don't want to reduce it to like a male's, but they want to do something in between. Like there's all those different types of things that people do all the time. So I just want to say, it's like, your sense of gender is a cis man. Our sense of gender is like, trans women. And unfortunately, we don't have a non-binary person here to say, hey, look, I exist. I'm right here. But I can guarantee you that they do exist. They have just as many issues that would be related to trans issues, such as not a non-binary people change their names, so they have to change their IDs. In the United States, we actually have X gender markers, so they actually have to go and change their IDs. They have
Sorry,
to
you're
deal
breaking
with.
up a little bit. Are you talking about chromosomes right now?
No, never will I do that. No, X on their ID instead of an M or an F. They actually have an X option on IDs and for their non-binary identities. So even in the United States and many states, we already legally recognize non-binary identities because they absolutely exist, and people demand to be recognized as the genders that they are, which is non-binary. So we have to, when we talk about trans non-binary folks, we have to give and make sure that there isn't non-binary erasure, because the issues of trans binary folks, trans men and women, also have an effect on trans non-binary folks, even though they may not go through hormones, or maybe they won't go through all these surgeries, or they may change their name, or they may not decide not to change their identity markers. Those are the things that we have to make sure we fight for in a society, because if we say that non-binary people don't exist, you are wiping off the table about a third, if not more, of probably more. I'm gonna call us binaries out. Probably about 50% of the trans movement is actually non-binary, right? And so we cannot take away the rights that we've already been working so hard in getting for non-binary folks. So just empirically and legally, non-binary people exist because we've already been providing services for non-binary people to receive basic human rights that trans people demand as a whole. So I think that's a place that we can probably start from on the existence of non-binary people, because I think the genie's already out of the bottle. Non-binary people exist. There are friends, there are relatives, there are relationships, all of it.
Yeah, Yas, I don't know if you knew this, but
sorry.
It's okay. I was going to say, I don't know if you knew this, but I actually have a sibling who's non-binary who's pursued medical transition that would not in any way, I wouldn't say not in any way, but is not the same as the transition that most trans men that I know go through, but was a medical transition that my sibling thought was the best option for them and that made them feel the most at home in their body. So yeah, I mean, it's not like, I guess if you were under the impression that non-binary people all are just people who, I mean, I don't even want to say that, because I totally think that non-binary people who don't transition are just as trans as non-binary people who don't transition or who do transition. But yeah, we're kind of going in circles a little bit here at this point. So it may be good for all of us to take a break. But I do think, Yas, you are a good faith interlocutor, which I really appreciate on this topic. And if you would like to, I would love to have you back on in the future to maybe further this discussion a little bit further.
Can I respond to this? Because I've heard
absolutely.
a lot of things, and I have a lot of things to say about it.
Sure.
I mean, I'll be blunt about some of the things you said, Josie. I think it's irrelevant whether or not we allow people to change their to put an X on their driver's license. I think that doesn't say anything about whether or not non-binary people are reasonable in saying that they are non-binary. It just means that if it wasn't a delusion, for example, I'm not saying it is. If it was a delusion, we could still be doing this. So whether or not whether or not they are reasonable in their gender identity doesn't mean that the fact that we're allowing them to change their gender or their sex on their driver's license has no impact on whether or not they quote unquote actually are non-binary.
So yes, I'll concede that technically we could construct society in such a way that we could legally acknowledge fictions. That is actually a possibility.
That's
you
true.
are correct.
Right.
But in this situation, the reason that we've given non-binary people access to legal gender markers is because that we have good evidence that suggests that giving trans people, including non-binary people, access to documents that reflects their actual gender, it vastly improves their well-being. So it's not like this is, much like most psychiatric mental states, the treatment is not going to be based in the same thing that like it would be for insulin, for example, right? It's going to be based in, oh, we see that this population receives this kind of outcome, and that's why we treat these things as real. Like depression and anxiety, they aren't like physical, tangible things, right? We just know that certain populations have certain symptoms, and that treating them with certain things is consistently effective with predictable rates. The same thing is true of non-binary people, which is why we would suggest that non-binary people are clearly real, because when we treat this group that presents consistently with similar symptoms, with the same similar treatments, being access to legal documents, being treated with respect and dignity, they receive an improvement in their well-being. So, I mean, I think it's there. Well, I agree with you that a marker on a license isn't in and of itself sufficient evidence that these people do exist in reality. The reason we've implemented those things is because there was good reason to believe that they do exist in reality, right? Which is, I think, why Josie brought that up.
Absolutely. And this has been something that's been being fought. In 2015, there was like, I think, one state that put non-binary markers on IDs, and now I think we're up to like 15 or something like that, because of the overwhelming evidence of the fact that non-binary people exist, and everything that Aron said is absolutely right. So we have more than just the actions of state government saying, hey, this person says who they say they are. It's also the fact that it's empirically backed by mountains of research and just the evidence that we have non-binary friends. You said you've talked to 2 yourself. So non-binary people do exist, and however they express themselves is their choice. Just when people say who they are, just believe them. It's not going to hurt anything.
Well, sure. I mean, I'm not saying there are no people who don't identify as non-binary, because that would be fucking stupid. But what I think is that. Sorry?
No, I was laughing because it's like, yeah, of course they exist, but that was the premise, right? That non-binary people don't exist because their existence is actually a farce, right? Which I think is also just as silly.
Right, but maybe I wasn't very clear when about what I meant. What I meant, obviously, they do identify as non-binary, because it would be, if we're talking, speaking of delusions, it would be me who was delusional if I said that, right?
Sure.
Right.
No, but what I mean is that what I think stems from it is that someone looks at, what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman? And goes, oh, okay, well, I don't identify as either or both or whatever. Instead of recognizing, hey, you know what? You could also be a man and be feminine, or a woman and be masculine. That's completely fine. And I think it's very rigid thinking. That's what I think.
We do have to wrap up this call because we have a couple others on the line, but I want to pose you with a bit of a question to think about in the time away, because I also see Katie's chopping on the bit. She wants to chat with you, so you should call in next week when we're both on. I'm sure we would love to chat. To think about, right? We can never know the contents of someone's mind, at least with technology as it stands currently. You can never know the contents of someone's mind to know if they are actually a woman, actually a man, actually non-binary. Pretty much all we can do, the most reliable method to determine someone's gender identity as it stands currently, is to take their word for it. That's borne out in the evidence.
I guess that's a good point.
And so, yeah,
but
I think
I'm interested in why. Why do they identify like that?
It could be a symptom of many things, or it could be that non-binary people is just a non-binary identity is just a way that humans' brains are oriented to be. It's really hard to say, but we do have to say goodbye. So I hope you think about that and digest it. I'm going to think about this call. I'm sure I'll be talking about it in between the weeks. So I wish you the best, Yas, and we'll hear from you soon.
Thank you, Yas.
All right.
Sorry. I try to preemptively hit the drop call button because it usually takes like 5 seconds, but sometimes I end up cutting off people. I apologize. Yes.
Tell us
Thank
how
you
you
so much
really
for the call.
feel.
Yeah. I appreciate having good faith callers on controversial topics because I think sometimes a lot of the callers can be just rigid and toxic rather than wanting to actually get to the truth of the matter. So I appreciate calls like that. We do have a couple callers on the line, though, with a few open spaces left. So we're going to move on. We're taking Olivia in Texas. Pronouns are she, her. Olivia, you are live on Transatlantic. What's going on?
Hello. It's great to be here. Well, I kind of have a spicy take, and that is lately I kind of feel maybe being trans is conversion therapy. And it kind of follows on with what the last caller was saying, that if you're just picking a set of constructs of what a man or a woman is and how they should or should not behave, and you're basing your identity on your lack of adherence to some construct, and then you're determining you're another thing other than that kind of maybe is conversion therapy. Because most of these constructs are obviously homophobic, and so you're basing your identity on homophobia, therefore conversion therapy.
Sure, I can see how you can come to that conclusion with what you've said, but I think you're missing a lot of really crucial bits of information. Like, do you think that most trans people didn't try to just like, I know for me, almost every trans woman I've spoken to, I tried to be a gay man. I tried to force myself to live that life. But you know what's a difficult thing to do when you're a gay man? Being attracted to women and saying, oh, I want to look like a woman and be with women sometimes, but I'm also a gay man. Like, being trans wasn't a conversion therapy. What?
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel exactly what you're saying, because that is also my predicament, right? I couldn't decide to live as a man or a gay man or anything. But in the end, I first thought I was a girl because people told me to stop acting like one. And that's why I got that. I can't think of any memory where I had an identity of I'm a woman or I'm a girl outside of that influence. Do you know what I mean?
Well, so I do sort of know what you mean, because I've often said on this show that for me, I didn't have a strong sense of I am a girl, I am a woman initially. What I did have was a very strong awareness that I was not a boy and not a man. That felt deeply wrong to me. That piece came first. So I can kind of relate to what you're saying, that I think this notion of like, you know, you hear about like Jazz Jennings being like stopping her foot with a dress on as a 5-year-old saying, no, I'm a girl, call me a girl. That was not my experience either. I don't think that it follows, though, to say that therefore being trans is conversion therapy, because otherwise you just would have been like a boy or a gay boy or something like that. It may well be that the way that you came to understand, it sounds like you're saying that you are trans as well, Olivia. Hopefully I'm not misunderstanding that.
I am trans, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
I'm
trans,
trans, yes.
Yeah,
okay,
so
that makes sense.
I'm having a spicy take. You said call, and I'm like, here's a spicy take. Because, I have my own internal rumination, right? And so I'm like, share me, maybe here's some free therapy. Why not?
Sure. Josie, did you have any thoughts on that too?
Yeah, I want to say, and thank you for sharing, Olivia, about your own personal story, because my journey is also like I am primarily a lesbian, but I am bi. But like when I pre-transition, and it took me all the way until 34 years old of pretending to be somebody I wasn't. And like the worst part, I was in the Navy. I did the whole thing because I wanted to be tough and manly. That's why I did it. And when I look back now, I look at all my relationships that didn't work out. It's because I was dating straight girls, and I was not a straight girl. So basically that whole that whole situation was really bizarre, because when I came out as trans, I was like, oh yeah, I'm lesbian, like totally, mostly, right? And so I think that's important, but I do want to push back on the spiciness of the take, right? We have to look and give reverence as trans people. Personally, I think of what conversion therapy is and what it means to our community. So conversion therapy is a form of torture that is specific when it comes, exactly, right? It's very specific, and it is something that we have to say, okay, conversion therapy is when you're taking a queer or trans person and you are making them live a different, like a heteronormative life against their will completely. They shouldn't even be there. And that is seen as a form of torture. And that's why we can say, as legislators, we can say, we want to ban conversion therapy, right? And that allows us to use that language to actually be constructive and actually save lives, right? Because conversion therapy kills people. So one thing that I just want to push back on is, if we start adopting the language of the people who are using this to torture us, then it makes it harder for us to be able to say, I am a trans person living right now, and that is my choice, and I didn't need to be converted to think so, right? This is something that I'm speaking for myself. This is something that I came up with. Nobody told me, nobody converted me, nobody did any of that. It was just like, enough, I can't lie that I'm a guy anymore. I am this woman who I am before you. And I think that we just got to be careful with the language choices that we choose, because I think that conversion therapy has a very special place in hell. And I think that we should keep it to, yeah, absolutely. And I think we should keep it with the definition.
That from my experience of it.
Of
right?
course, of course.
So I mean, even more deeply than that, I mean, I had it. And so what I will say specifically about it is that it's tricky in that they will never say gay. And that's a thing with this group that hates us. They'll never say gay or lesbian. So while you're being tortured, it is always phrased in gender. You're acting like a boy, or you're acting like a girl. And so in that way, you're, at least my image of, like, I don't maybe understand gender or something. I don't, you know what I mean? And so I don't know that even my point can be gotten across. So I was never, I don't have a framework to understand, was I just gay, because that information wasn't there. The only information I had was I'm either a girl or a boy.
Yeah, I think maybe this will help, maybe it won't. Feel free to let me know if this is like maybe useless, but something that I think is helpful, because I think you're absolutely right about gender being kind of difficult to wrap your head around, and not I don't mean that in like a patronizing way. I mean, like, psychologist, I have a psychology degree, right? Like, what makes someone's temperament, their personality the way it is so, there are so many factors that go into that it becomes impossible to derive. But what we do know is that personality types are generally pretty durable over someone's lifetime, right? And I like to think of gender as a separate construct in your brain, but that functions very similarly. There are so many factors that could be a reason why you are the gender that you are, right? Could be fetal hormones. It could be something about your environment while you were being raised. It's really difficult to know. But one thing that we do know is that someone's gender is usually pretty locked in by the time they're about 2 or 3 years old. They usually have a sense of their gender, and that it is usually very stable across someone's lifetime, such that conversion therapy is just not effective, right? All it does is leave people with trauma. It doesn't change their gender identity. So I think if it's helpful, we don't really know why anyone is trans, right? Or why anyone has a gender sense at all. We just know that they do, and that it's relatively consistent, and that it seems to be the case that conversion therapy makes people more suicidal, more depressed, all of these really difficult symptoms, whereas giving people access to documents and affirmative care and having a supportive environment and supportive leaders in their community vastly improves their well-being. So, well, I definitely empathize with, I don't really know why someone is trans or why they are a gender. It may be that we never know that, but do we really need to? You know, if we know what improves people's lives while they're alive, do we need to know why they are the way they are? I don't know if I necessarily think that we do. But yeah, I don't know if that's helpful with the terms of like I don't know why I'm trans. It could be that I was bullied and somebody called me a sissy when I was on the playground, and now I have this horrible thing, you know? It might be. If even if it were, right? Let's say for a second that it was the bullying that made us trans. Would that change anything? No. You would still deserve access to healthcare, to documents that reflect your identity, to a supportive community. It doesn't, even if that were the case, it doesn't matter, because the evidence is very clear about what trans people need to succeed and thrive in society. And I don't think we really need to go much deeper than that, you know? But I do appreciate the hypothetical, because it's like, it is hard to know sometimes, you know, when we get beaten over the head with these narratives about who we are and where it comes from. And it's hard to tease it apart sometimes. But I do think it's worth doing.
And Olivia, I want to ask you really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, it's like, you feel confident, so you're saying, okay, my gender, but do you feel confident as a woman? Like, you're a woman. Like, do you feel that
absolutely.
for yourself?
I mean, my transition was the greatest decision I ever made for myself. It improved my quality of life in infinite ways. I'm better at my, at work. I have friends. It's dramatically improved my life. Like, this was more like hypothetical, because I don't feel that it hindered me. I was hurt and traumatized before, and certainly I had whatever childhood trauma, boo-hoo. But I've learned, like, it's immensely better. It's nothing but helped me, and I agree with everything you said. It's just like, I linger questions like,
I would take.
I'm sorry.
I would take that euphoria that you feel, and that confidence and that happiness that you are being yourself, and use that as your validation, that what you are doing and who you are is exactly who you are. And however those words define and figure out, like, how they land on the outside of our person is on the periphery. What's most important is that you feel confident and you feel happy, because that happiness is the validation that you are this gender and that you are the person that you are. And I'm really, really happy that you are finding this happiness in yourself.
Yeah, it was great. I'm so glad that I did it. I mean, it's been a while now, and I'm just so glad. I can't imagine a different life now. I just can't. I could never go back. It would be impossible.
That's beautiful.
I love that.
Beautiful.
Well, Olivia, thank you so much for this call. This is actually, I think, a really interesting conversation. I appreciate what you spurred on here. And I think we could probably have a whole show kind of going on about this kind of concept. I think it's really interesting. But we do have one more caller we're going to get to before we run on to Super Chats. So I'm going to let you go. But thank you again so much for calling. And I hope we hear from you in the future, Olivia.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. As I sort of hinted at there, and if anyone's in the audience watching live, if you want to do super chats after we take this last caller, we will read them out live. It really does help keep the show going. So we always appreciate those. They're always so generous, and we love the little playful games that we do with it, with the Team Katy or Team Josie or Team Arden or whatever. So we love to see the representation show up for Team Arden. I also want to remind you that if you're watching after the yes, well, you know what? I'm a little biased. I do like Josie too, Team Josie. For those watching after the show is live, you can support the show also by doing the super thanks feature, which is kind of new. I'm barely even familiar with it, but it's right next to the like button and will allow you to leave like a customizable, colorful comment. So that way, if you have want to take part in the conversation, you want to make sure your thoughts are heard, that's the way you can do that. We always appreciate your support so much. But before we do that, we're going to take this last caller on the line. We've got Sabrina. Pronouns are she, her. Sabrina, you are live on Transatlantic. What's going on?
Hey there, Arden. Hey, Josie. And long time no speak, Arden. It's been a little while since I last chatted with you.
Hey, I thought I was going to say, Sabrina from Canada, that sounds familiar.
Yes, it is I. I don't know if I've actually called into this particular show, but I've called into a lot of the adjacent shows before.
Sure.
Anyway, so yeah, how are we both doing? By the way, Team Josie.
Love it.
Nice.
Good start.
Right.
Anyway, I wasn't sure if I was going to call in today, but you were asking for callers, so I called, and it was something related to one of the earlier calls. It reminded me of something that I have to deal with quite a bit, trans imposter syndrome. I don't know if that's a proper term, but it's what I call it.
Should be. Yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
I also have a secondary, before I was out as trans, I still had an issue just even calling myself queer, so queer imposter syndrome as well, but today, let's be specific, because this is the Transatlantic College show after all. Anyway, so when that, I can't remember her name now, first, second caller, but we were talking about being unsure about whether you're being valid or not, and then of course we came into the non-binary as being something connected into another call, and for myself, like I've only been out since about December, like this past December, so not even a full year yet. I mean out to myself. I came out to everyone at the same time. I came out to myself.
Nice.
Because I did it publicly, so it is what it is.
Good for you.
Yes, and I've been on hormones for just about 3 months now. I actually am going to be seeing my endo next week.
Yay!
That's awesome. So exciting.
The first 3 months are tough, so you made it through it, girl. Love it.
Yeah.
Honestly, well, if you say the first 3 months are tough, I feel kind of sad because it wasn't that bad for the most part.
Well, good.
Yeah,
that's a good thing, though.
For me, it was the tough thing was the waiting. I was like, come on, I want boobs now.
Oh, that was tough. I was also going through like a really bad breakup, so that was like the worst time to like have my hormones and emotions going all over the place. So it was really tough for me.
Yeah, you know, fair enough. And there is definitely some adjacent stuff that does make it a bit frustrating. I'm going through some of my own issues right now, but more of an environmental one than a personal one. I hate cockroaches. Anyway, moving on.
Yo. So do we.
Yeah,
I'm sure I do at least. I don't know about artists.
Yeah.
You might love my mind.
I'm not a fan of insects, generally speaking, but so
it's been an ongoing problem.
So you're talking about you're experiencing some trans imposter syndrome. Was there like it sounded like you were going to extrapolate on that, yeah?
Yes, I was going to extrapolate. I'm ADHD and distracted.
No worries.
So this was especially strong very early in my transition. So the first couple months, when I first came out, I was still using my dead name. Like I wasn't even, I wasn't initially even comfortable experimenting. I was just kind of saying like, yeah, I'm just non-binary. I'm not really sure what I'm at. Eventually I did come up with the name Sabrina, but I was using both of them. But all this time I'm thinking, I always come back to this idea is like, is this really actually who I am? And I'm not just being influenced by having a fuck ton of trans friends, because that was a big thing. I mean, hindsight is what helped me come out, is meeting and interacting with so many lovely trans people and realizing the experiences aren't nearly as narrow as television would have told me. But here I am second guessing myself, thinking like, no, I'm just being influenced by my environment. I'm just I don't know. It's so frustrating. It still comes back here and there. One of the big issues for me. So in this process, I said I was identifying as non-binary to start off with. Then I'm like, no, I really am a woman, and so calling myself a trans woman. But then some of the issues I have was the fact that I'm not, so one, I don't generally never really had gender dysphoria.
Okay.
Related to somebody else's hot take earlier. That made me a little cross, to be honest. I'm like, having gender dysphoria is not a requirement to be trans, but because I didn't have it, it is like, well, I was never really bothered. Like, I don't have an issue with bottom. I'm at this stage, I don't think I will get bottom surgery at all. I'm just not interested. And like, I'm not bothered by this and that. It's like, is this valid? Even though I know, because people have already said as such, that you don't need gender dysphoria to be trans, it's still, that idea that you have to have it is still like kind of ingrained in there. And so trying to unlearn that idea has been effective. Like, it's not nearly as bad as it used to be, but it was a bit of a challenge. The other thing, semi-related, is there are some masculine experiences I've had, and in some cases still have, that I actually enjoy, that I get some small degree, not nearly as much as my feminine euphoria, but get a small degree of euphoria from that. It was from this point that I realized that I, air quotes, updated my identity, once again, from trans woman to non-binary trans woman. So I'm still a trans woman. I still identify as a woman, but I'm not binary. I'm not all the way there. There's still a little bit of something else. If you imagine the spectrum, it's not like I'm in the center, but I'm far off to one side without being all the way at the edge, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that sort of exploration did help a lot. I mentioned earlier in the chat when we were talking about non-binary, I did say the understanding of the non-binary spectrum is one of the main pillars that allowed me to realize who I am. Because before understanding non-binary identities, I was like, well, I still like these aspects of being a guy, so like, I can't be a woman. But knowing that things aren't that cut and dry, that binary allowed me to realize that my experiences are still very much valid. But even now, even at this point, as optimistic and happy as I am, I still sometimes struggle with the imposter syndrome. Like, I'm thrilled because they're finally starting to grow a little bit and they're not hurting as much anymore. You know what I'm talking about?
Of course.
I think it's interesting, Sabrina, what you were saying earlier about how, you're like, oh, I have all these trans friends. Maybe I'm being influenced by my environment. It almost sounds kind of like the reverse thing that people get wrong, where they're like, oh, are you trans because you were abused? It's like not recognizing that the correlation actually goes the other way. Like, you probably have all these trans friends because you're trans and you're desperately seeking community, even if it's subconsciously. You probably were the target of an abuser because you were clearly not, you were clearly a kid who was different than the other kids. Like, it's this thing we've been taught to do, to be like, oh, the reason that I am the way I am is because of like this bad thing that happened to me, so it's not as valid, when usually the correlation is the complete other way. The reason you got targeted was because of that. You know what I mean? It's totally a normal thing to, I think, run through. And to some extent, I will say, I think it's good to always be questioning everything. I think it's good to question. There's a limit to it where eventually it becomes pathological and you're kind of hurting yourself by doing so. And that's I think kind of what you're getting at, where sometimes we do it too much to ourselves. But I do think it's normal and healthy to always be trying to introspect. Like, how do I feel? Was the way that I used to articulate myself, does it still apply? Is it still as accurate? Or maybe have I learned more about myself that makes me have to like rework how I approach that in the future? I think it's a good thing to aspire towards, self-actualizing, to always be questioning in that way. But
absolutely.
Absolutely.
I want to also add that your experience of like the exploration is just really an illustration of that second conversation we had about non-binary identities, of how gender really is this spectrum, right? Like trans identities really are this spectrum, and where you fall on that spectrum is an exploration that you are currently having by asking yourself these questions. And I think it's just like Arden said, it's kind of like human, right, to self explore and do all those things. And I think that you not having gender dysphoria is actually I kind of envy you a little, because I have severe gender dysphoria, but I think a lot of that is also external. I think a lot of that is pushed on me because I was abused so much for being not manly enough. So every little thing about me is like I focus on it very heavily socially because of the trauma that I went through, like being in the military and things like that. So gender euphoria and your search for utter happiness in your identity is just as valid as somebody trying to avoid pain, right? Or discomfort, really. Let's say discomfort from dysphoria, right? So and you know, in the piece that I like to add about people who try to argue against you have to have gender dysphoria to be trans, I usually push back and I say, why, if let's say people who are trans didn't have gender dysphoria at all, and they can just choose and be the trans person that they are, because it's a free country and we should be able to do whatever the hell we want, right? However we want to express is the however we want to express. Why do we need to have like a medical condition to be able to be the people? Could you imagine if you needed like a medical condition to get your ears pierced because you were making a permanent body modification? Like, it's like, you got to prove to me that you have earring dysphoria. Do you feel uncomfortable because you don't have earrings in your ears? Go to a psychologist, find a letter, then we'll come and pierce your ears, right? That would be absurd. But that's the level that they put trans people through. And it's like this gate that is put there to try to prevent people like yourself, who enjoys exploring yourself and finding what makes you happy, to make you feel that imposter syndrome of like, am I really trans? I don't feel the discomfort than this other trans person. Is my trans as valid as somebody else's trans? No, all trans is valid. If you say you're trans, you're trans. And however you get there it doesn't matter. That's just part of your personal journey. And don't ever let anybody try to take that away from you. Your trans identity is yours, and regardless of how you got to who you are is perfect. And so just know that.
Yeah. I do want to give you a chance to hop back in here, Sabrina. I'm sorry. I'm just itching to just kind of reiterate something that's been said multiple times tonight, which is again that
go right ahead. This is great.
Yeah, I think kind of this leads to, again, reiterating what's been said multiple times, is that why the reason that you're trans, you know, whether or not you are like, you know, we could probably sit here and have a philosophical discussion about, you know, what actually is a woman, right? But I find that conversation to be really useless and a waste of time, and usually a cover for just being transphobic. Because I don't think it really matters whether or not, you know, someone is literally, philosophically, whatever other kind of word you want to use, ontologically, and that's probably not right at all, but, you know, just to pull some fancy philosophical sounding words out of my ass here to apply to this, it doesn't matter, right? If you are trans and you're like, hey, I definitely know I'm not cis, and I want to self-actualize myself, and that for me means, you know, surgery and hormones and stuff, it doesn't matter whether or not you are actually a woman or actually non-binary or actually whatever. It doesn't matter. You're improving your well-being, which helps improve the overall well-being of society. The more happy and healthy and functional people there are, the better we all do. So like I totally understand the internal urge to parse out, right? Like, I want to know for me if I'm, you know, literally this or literally that or whatever. That's totally valid if that's like an urge you're having. But I think we sometimes get so bogged down in like, oh, should I even be transitioning because I don't know if this is valid or not, when I think that's such a waste of time. Are you happier because you got laser hair removal? Amazing. I don't give a fuck if you're cis or trans or whatever. Like, I want you to self-actualize and be your best self. And if that means like going through transition, that's amazing and good for you.
I wish I could afford laser.
You'll get there. You'll get there. You can do it. It just takes time. You'll get there soon enough. It takes time. I'm still doing it. I've been transitioning for like 2.5 years. I'm still doing stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's an ongoing battle.
yeah, for sure. And yeah, no, so much stuff that I feel like I should have been taking notes at this point. Though I will say, Aron, you were very specific about that stuff. And I almost felt like you were referencing a particular video someone posted or something like that. Anyway.
Was I? Wait, I didn't even mean to. Did I do that? Oh, wow. I'm not even knowing my own reference.
A certain Matt Walsh made a nasty
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
What is a woman?
To be honest, that's
the title.
Yeah, I mean that's why they harp on it, right? Because it's a red herring. It's an irrelevant question that has nothing to do with actually like the social consequences of letting trans people be themselves. It's a fun little way for them to bash trans people and stoke fear and propaganda. It's a completely illegitimate like farcical thing that they're pursuing. I don't even think Matt Walsh cares. I think he gets the thrill off of seeing all the Twitter trans people get super pissed at him, rightfully so, for being such a bigot. But I think that's really what it is for him. He's got community in the people who also hate trans people, who tell him he's so smart and innovative for doing this. And he likes to make the people he doesn't like angry. So he feels like he's gotten a win all around. But I don't think he actually cares about the question itself, you know? The protecting women and girls thing is clearly a front for... I mean, and again, I don't know the contents of his mind. I can't know for sure that he doesn't care about that, but I think I can make a pretty good fucking estimation that he probably doesn't actually care much about that as he fronts. But with that said, Sabrina, I do want to give you a chance to give a last word. We're going to have to wrap up the show so we can get on to Super Chats. But I'd love to give you a last little chance to pipe in here and share your thoughts or your feelings or any of that.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I just honestly wanted to prompt a good conversation because, like, I'm someone who's had issues and I'm getting better working through it, and I just wanted other people, perhaps in the chat, maybe struggling with a similar idea of trans imposter syndrome, just to realize, like, hey, we can all have an issue with this, and it's fine. Like, you are still definitely valid, and that's what I say. Like, no matter what, your experience as a trans, or your experience as a person, not even trans. I think this is more all-encompassing. Your experience as a person is valid, and don't let people tell you otherwise. Like, you're you, and that's fine. And yeah, I like how you highlighted always being willing to question. And I'm like, yeah, I'm approaching this the same way I approach everything else, as a good skeptic ought to, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm skeptical of my own conclusions, and while I'm not excessive about it, I'm like, well, I've been calling myself aromantic for a while, but now I have this really strong crush on someone. Maybe I should reassess
there we go.
this idea.
Yeah.
Sorry, by the way. Anyway,
it's amazing. You know, take joy in your transition. You're so early in it. Like, really take joy in the changes and the experience and the whole thing. Like, there's nothing like it. So definitely take joy in that journey.
I'm having a blast, and like another thing that was highlighted. I really want to. I know I'm taking up time. I'm sorry, but I really want
no worries
before I leave. Now I don't now that I've been transitioning, I realize that I have had a little bit of gender dysphoria in certain areas. It's just something I didn't realize it was an issue for me, but it was never particularly strong. Anyway, but the gender euphoria. It's like, I wasn't particularly bothered presenting as a man. But now that I'm presenting as a woman, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so happy. It's awesome. I love being me.
Oh, that's so good.
It's so good, and it only gets better.
It does. It's so true. Awesome.
It only gets better. I literally, like, a month ago was crying because I was so happy and everything in my life. Like, seriously, it just happened.
I love that.
I think I still got a little too much tea to be able to cry that easily, but I mean, that's why I'm seeing the end of next week.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much, Sabrina. I really appreciated this, and I hope we hear back from you as things grow and develop. Maybe you're going to call back in like 6 months and tell us that it's all changed. Now I've got all of these other things I'm thinking about, and I can't wait to hear about it. Wish you the best of luck, Sabrina, and we'll hear from you soon.
Bye, Sabrina.
Talk to you all next time. Bye-bye.
All right. Awesome. What a good show. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking calls with me, Josie. How you feel?
I feel good. Hey, and I didn't even tell everybody. I'm like on day 4 of COVID. So everybody that's watching just got it from me digitally. Yeah. I was just super spreading it.
We're doing our own digital super spreader right here. Yeah,
that's right.
I'm glad you were able to show up. Okay, this is what I told Josie this, I think it was yesterday. She's like, oh, I've got all these big important meetings that I'm going to, and I've got COVID. And I'm like, you're literally like a rock star. You're like, I'm out here leading one of like the most important surveys about trans people while I have COVID. Just fucking like, it's amazing.
Taking meetings for the DNC, whatever, just doing the thing.
So awesome. So impressive. But we are going to move on to our super chat section. So as I said earlier, any super chats $5 or more, we will read out live. It again is what allows our show to keep being produced the way that it is. It's so awesome that we get to do this, and we're really grateful for your support. Anything you have to give is greatly appreciated. So we're good to go. Oh, we're starting from Katy. All right. We'll go back and forth, Josie, if you're cool with that.
Yeah,
5 pounds from Katy Montgomerie. Sorry, the poll was mine when I thought I'd be on. Yes, the UK GC crew has been harassing a woman in charge of a writers guild, and looks like this continues on. GC has found out she has a trans son, so she said she was proud to support him. Dr. Stock then said she had noticed that lots of people who support trans rights have, and I quote, undeclared trans identity. Wait, that's amazing.
Wait, what?
Undeclared trans-identified offspring and accused them of being biased. Fuck off. So it's like, it's kind of like when people, anytime there's a UFO, an unidentified flying object, that they say it's an alien. It's like anytime somebody supports trans people, they've got an unidentified trans offspring. UTO is what we're going to call that. Hashtag Team Katy.
That's great.
Boo.
Oh, of course.
You're not even here. You can't have points.
I know. I'll just take it.
You know what?
Because I'm sure Katy would love that. Yeah, see, Katy loves the fact that I just took it.
And to be fair, yeah, I know Katy well enough to know that she would rather you take the point than me, so that's fair. I'll accept that.
She just wants you to be beaten as bad as I beat her last time. Ooh.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. Damn, brutal. I'm getting assassinated out here.
I'm brutal. Okay, $9.99 from Luisa. Luisa, right? I'm gonna say Luisa. Is that right, Luis?
Sure.
I'm just saying that. All right, Richardson. I'm so sorry. I'm so bad with names. I'll do it all the time. It's not specifically you. It's everybody. Arden, have you seen the billboards thanking Greg Abbott for protecting parental rights? That was never an issue, but now trans kids and parents can be prosecuted or persecuted.
I have not seen those billboards. I mean, to be fair, there are so many billboards around Austin and Texas that are like, call Jesus if you hate the gays. And it's like, so I kind of black out and don't really pay attention to what's on them most of the time. That's horrifying to think that that's a way that things are going, though.
It's becoming a dog whistle, right? A dog whistle now when you hear legislation saying like we're doing a protect parent rights bill or anything like that, it's usually some watered down or the same bill that is the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida. So it really is just a dog whistle. And so when you see that, you should be like, yeah, they're just being they're signaling their base to say, hey, look, I protect parental rights, and what that means to them is that they can control their students and their education, and they can't let them be trans and all that type of stuff. So yeah, it's really upsetting to see something like that become a dog whistle.
Yeah, especially with how hard that is to fight in conversation, and I think it's really difficult. But yeah, I'm hoping I don't know. I tend to be a bit of a cynic, a bit of a pessimist with the direction of things are going. So I'm hoping that I'm wrong about my intuitions about those things. But now we have €5 from Yasmin Meadowflower. I think I exist, but don't tell anyone. Nope, if you're non-binary, you don't exist. We already settled it here and now.
Yeah, we're not telling anybody. This is not a real thing. We're just moving on. No, you exist. Sorry. The cat's out of the bag.
You do.
Yeah.
Man. Okay. It seems like we're not getting as many this week, but that's okay. I get it. I don't want to pressure people to donate money that they don't have. I get times are difficult.
I will. Donate now. Super chat and put Team Josie. Help us keep the lights on. I mean, if a raindrop falls in Texas, the power goes out, so they need the extra support. You just got to make sure that we keep the lights on, keep things running. So hashtag Team Josies with the super chat is much appreciated. I love you all. Support your local trans people.
Thank you so much, Josie, for doing the hard work here. Appreciate it.
$10 from Noble Monster Comics. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
They're always supporting. They're really, really awesome. $10 from Jessica Barboza. Also, I love that's Naruto, right? Or is that Bleach? It's been a while.
It's not Naruto.
Either of those. It's not Naruto. Okay, that's probably Bleach. That PFP. Very cool. I worry at times that I'm just an imposter. Then those feelings are eclipsed by feeling right. Not so true. I think something my therapist always tells me is that, all emotions are fleeting mental events. That's the way she phrases them, which has really helped me a lot with tolerating, some of the darker emotions that we deal with as people. And I think those imposter feelings, likewise, are also just fleeting mental events. And, if you can just kind of hold on hope, I think most of us are going to get to a place where, like for me, every time I did something gender affirming after going through a period of feeling really shitty, I was like, oh no, I'm definitely trans, because holy crap, that made me feel a million times better in my skin.
For sure. Like shaving my legs or painting my nails, doing things like that where it's just like, oh, just go spinny, right? Those things are very affirming, and really, they're just feelings that I think we all have to try to get over. I think just because society is trying to tell us no so badly, we can't let those external forces get into our head, but it's completely normal and it passes with time. And just have really cool friends, like seriously, where you don't even worry anytime. You're just hanging out. Yeah,
that's so true. I totally agree with that. I used to be so self-hating because of the environment I was in, and when I found that I had an environment of people who supported me, I remember it genuinely shocked me, and I was like, wait, I can just be myself around you people? Like, what the fuck? It's so jarring sometimes, I think, for a lot of us. So yeah, agreed. Good people are important.
$5, and that one's pounds. I know because it's from Katy. Josie is banned from Transatlantic. No, your point still goes to me. So looks like the points on the board disagree with you wholeheartedly.
Uh-oh, Katie's losing her seat. Haha. Wonderful.
Haha.
Thanks, Katy. £5 from Missy Prime. How many GCs does it take to change a light bulb? None. They prefer gaslighting. Oh, that's great.
That's a good
love
one.
That. That's a really good one. Thanks, Missy. Keep up the great work, everyone. Hashtag Team Josie. Wow, I see.
Thank you.
So you're trying to slaughter me is what's happening. I'm going to lose this brutally.
It's what happens.
Oh, man.
I love you, chat. You're awesome. $5 Canadian from Paul Torco. Team Arden, you got one.
Yes, I got a point.
I hope, and I see that Jimmy didn't put my point on the board. I see you. I will hopefully be able to call in with my many questions. Great show. Liked hearing from a different perspective. Well, you're welcome. I hope you do call in sometime.
Yeah. I was actually really happy with today's episode. I'd like to have the combative callers who are not maybe super pro-trans, who can, like, I know I said this earlier, but who are good faith callers. So if you feel that way, we try now granted, if you come in here telling me I'm a man, I might be combative with you. But if you come in here trying to have a good faith conversation, just because you're like, we try really hard to have respectful, productive conversations here, regardless of your starting point. So yeah, thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. $9.99 from Kelly Even. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks. So nice. $5 Canadian from Sabrina Page. Team Josie, we need to make this win more clear. Here's some money, Monopoly money, Canadian money. Much appreciated, Sabrina. Love you dearly.
Brutal. Hit after hit on Team Arden.
I won't let up.
That's fair. $4.99 from Nicholas. Team Katy. Well, Team Katy's not even an option today, so thanks for your money, Nicholas.
You know what, Jimmy? Go ahead.
And not give it away.
Go ahead and give it to Team Arden. I am merciful.
Oh wow, yeah. You're so far ahead, you can toss away a point. Well, that's fair. I think that might have been the last super chat for the evening. So Team Arden has taken a brutal loss. Oh, we got another one. Oh, this is Sean Isherwood. Sean loves to send us questions that are using complicated math terms that I don't understand. 10 factorial is the product of 3 factorial, 5 factorial, and 7 factorial.
Okay.
That's great. Thanks, Sean.
It's been too long. I stopped doing nuclear physics like a long time ago. It's not me anymore.
Oh, we got a sticker.
Spectacular Snyderman sent a $5 super sticker, and I'm gonna say Snyderman is actually one of my longest supporters on my stream on Twitch and a moderator. I love them dearly. Oh, thank you for being here.
That's awesome.
$5. Yeah,
I see the one they sent was like the dancing pear too. That's like blowing a noisemaker. So that's cool.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah. $4.99 from Nickel Us Team Katy. This one doesn't go to you because that would mess up my streak.
Wait, I think this is the one we had earlier, right? Same one.
Oh, it is the same one. It is the same one.
Yeah,
it's Jimmy. Yeah. Jimmy trying to rig the game.
I see 2 coming in last minute. All right, here. Can we get these 2?
Oh, I know why you say that.
We're wrapping up.
I know.
Oh, yeah. You got. I think these are 2 votes. Oh,
no.
Oh, wait. Are we changing the game right here? Come on. $5 from Exempla Gradia, girl. Team Mayo. Great show as always. I still don't know how I became Team Mayo when I was just originally. I don't hate mayo, but I'll take it. Point for me. I love it.
No. I said vegan mayo is mine too. So we're both on Katie's shit list. It's all right.
Oh no. Yeah. How do we solve that one?
How do we solve it? I guess we just outnumber and vote in that Team Mayo is a thing. Katie's not here to reject that.
Oh. There's more.
Wait a minute. It's a tie? Is that what's going to happen? I should have never given you that point.
I think I just pulled ahead.
Because
of the point you gave me.
You can't take Team Mayo unless I get Team Mayo, so it's a tie.
All right, maybe I can stomach that one for sure. Farron Salas, #Team Arden, doing my small part to keep the race tight. Thank you very much. We appreciate it over here.
Yeah, thank you. Making this a horse race. $4.99 from Coffee Mom. My 14th birthday is on Sunday, and it's a shameless plug for myself. Team Arden. Wow. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Coffee Mom. Yes.
Hey, there's still time for Team Josie's, everybody. Come on. My mercy should not be repaid this way.
I don't know. I might have pulled ahead. I don't get a lot of wins, so I might call the show here. That is technically the last super chat, and I do smell some stuffed peppers being cooked by my lovely boyfriend downstairs.
Ooh.
So as much as I would love to stay and hang out with you all, I think it might be time to wrap up. So I'm gonna say thank you everyone for showing up, to the mods and the audience, and thank you to Jimmy and everyone who makes this show possible. It's really so much fun to do. I love getting to show up here every week. And thank you to Josie for being so awesome. We love having you here. We can't wait to have you back. I would love it if you'd give yourself a little plug. Say goodbye.
Yes, absolutely. Hello, everybody. I am Josie Caballero, but I go by Josie Rose C on stream on Twitch. I am a variety streamer, but really what I do is I am the director of the U.S. Transgender Survey for the National Center for Transgender Equality. So if you are trans and residing in the United States or its territories, please go to ustranssurvey.org to take the pledge, and we will be launching it shortly. And you'll have an opportunity to share your story as a trans person living in the United States.
Yeah, the survey is really important. The data collected from that we use all the time on this show. In past episodes, I've referenced that survey many times. It's very important. So definitely participate in that if you're able to. And $5 in Jessica
And you're
Barboza
getting that blowout.
Arden, and it's complete.
I'm getting blown out.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. It's been real. I can't wait to see you all next week back with me and Katy. That's it. Bye.
Bye, everybody.